Hi, my name's Cathy Skipper and I'm a menopause midwife. Welcome to my channel, The Alchemy of Menopause. The title of this video is Why Should You Get to Know Your Unconscious During Perimenopause? And this may seem like a weird subject for a video about menopause, but in fact, the unconscious is central to a woman's journey to becoming a wise elder. And in my work and the way that I see menopause, that is the aim of menopause. So if we want to live through menopause in a way that is empowering and full of growth, we need to learn to build a relationship with and navigate our unconscious minds. It's really it's really a natural part of maturing. And Carl Jung actually said that. He said that the first part of life is for building families, getting out there, studying, deciding who you are in the world. And then the second part of life is for going inward. Okay, so the personal unconscious, which is what we're going to look at here, as defined by Carl Jung, it's part of the unconscious mind that contains personal experiences, personal thoughts, personal memories that are not currently in our conscious awareness. We can't just access them because we're not consciously aware of them, even though they're part of us. So what is the role of the personal unconscious in perimenopause? So although the mainstream, as we all know, tends to focus obsessively on the physical changes and challenges that women experience during perimenopause, it is far from the whole story. I'm just trying to move because of the glare in my glasses. In fact, once women realize the potential for growth and healing that perimenopause can offer them, I find that the physical aspects tend to soften, or they take a slightly more back seat because women realize there's something else going on here. Something that is and can be exciting, challenging, yes, but exciting and full of potential. However, I've also noticed that making the bridge between being stuck in a negative view of menopause and really being overwhelmed by the physical symptoms and understanding the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of this journey can be a very hard thing to bridge or hard change to make for many women. And that's why we have menopause midwives. That's why I'm training women to become menopause midwives. So a key reason why particularly the unconscious is challenging is that it's not given the value and the power that actually merits in our society. So even though it's a huge part of the psyche and actually controls us in many ways, many of us just don't see it. And some of us don't even believe it exists. So many of the moods that women complain about during perimenopause, such as anger, anxiety, sadness, rage, grief, aren't just a symptom of menopause. They're not just happening because our hormones are fluctuating. They are, I believe, a sign of unconscious material that is ready to be excavated. So in that anxiety that a woman's feeling, underneath it, there's something rising from the unconscious. And so what do I mean by this? The root of these feelings, so what's underneath, as I said, or what's surging these feelings outwards, is hidden from the woman's conscious awareness, but it's getting ready. It's like a big boil that's under the surface, but it's heating up and it's getting ready to come through, to burst. The pus is ready. I mean, it's a horrible analogy. Sorry about that. But, you know, something is ready to come through. And in my work with women that I've been doing for 10 years now, I've seen that this is really the emotional, mental, and spiritual work of perimenopause is really about guiding women and holding space for women as they allow these unconscious parts of themselves to come forward. So we could say that perimenopause is an accelerated growth period where a woman's psyche naturally wants to reclaim what's been lost or the parts of her she's abandoned along the way, and simultaneously also let go of the old outdated parts of herself or the things she's taken on for other people that aren't really her or that aren't her anymore. So there's a sort of taking back and a letting go, and it's all part of the growth process. At perimenopause, the hormonal changes and the changes, the hormonal changes that affect the brain could be, in part, triggering these parts of the unconscious into our awareness. But the key to remember is they may be triggering this surge of unconscious material, but they're not creating it. A woman may complain of being sad, tearful, angry, rageful, whatever it is, irritated, frustrated. But if she hasn't had the right support, she may not know how to work with what's coming up. So she just feels overwhelmed. All these feelings are coming up. They must be because of my perimenopause or my hormonal changes. I must get rid of them. But actually, we can go deeper than that, and we can say, oh, something is ready to be looked at. And when we look at it, we can then decide, is this something I need to reclaim that's been in the unconscious? Is this something that I've been carrying in my unconscious that isn't mine or that is no longer something that I need to move forward with? It's like clearing house. And perimenopause really is that. It's about clearing house. So I really believe that if women's emotional lives aren't given the attention they deserve at this time in their lives, the physical changes and these symptoms and these mood swings and these overwhelming feelings will actually get worse because they're there for a reason. If we ignore them, then of course they're going to get worse. Dr. Christiane Northrup, who wrote some books about the wisdom of menopause, wrote, well, in her book, The Wisdom of Menopause, she's written several books. At midlife, more psychic energy becomes available to us than any time since adolescence. If we strive to work in active partnership with that organic energy, organic meaning it comes from the self, it's not coming from the outside, it's coming from within, trusting it to help us uncover the unconscious and self-destructive beliefs about ourselves and our unhealed hurts that have held us back from what we could become, then we find we have access to everything we need to reinvent ourselves as healthier, more resilient women, ready to move joyfully into the second half of our lives. So I would say, even more than reinvent ourselves, there's a sort of rebirth process. So we don't consciously reinvent ourselves. It's not like going to the shops and getting a new outfit and some new makeup and feeling different. It comes organically from the inside of us. It's already there in a way, but it's a lot to do with the unconscious. And it isn't all negative either. In order for a girl to grow into a woman in a world where she had to fit in, a world that has been up till now largely dominated by patriarchy, and that's been the blueprint of our world. For a girl to grow into a woman, she's had to leave a lot of what is considered, or what is not considered, what is truly her feminine power and strength and nature in the unconscious, because she has to fit into a world that in a way from the outside dictates what it is to be a woman. And so those things that over her lifetime she's buried, those will also come up at some point. So as a menopause midwife, my job is to guide women in ways that can begin to build to build a relationship with their own unconscious. And what I've noticed, and this is really great, is that once women get the roadmap, once I show them that the unconscious exists and there is a roadmap, and it's alchemical in a sense, women run with it. It's as if they're ready for it, but nobody's shown it to them. It's as if it's what they've been looking for, maybe unconsciously, without knowing it. But once they get it, it makes sense to them. Oh yes, it's not just about these physical changes. There's so much more. And there's so much more potential in this process. So according to Carl Jung, the psyche, which is what we're talking about, which is our physical bodies, our emotional self, our mind and our thoughts, and our spirituality, is a naturally self-regulating system. So when it hits a big developmental stage, such as puberty or menopause, it grows and changes in preparation for the next stage of life. So in puberty, we see, our children or the young people that they look different. They're not quite finished in a way. Sometimes their ears are bigger at one point because the rest of the face hasn't grown, or the nose is bigger, and there's sort of some hair if they're a boy, but they're not quite finished. But these changes are happening, getting them ready for, they're in the in-between stage, getting them ready for adulthood. And in menopause, it's the same, getting us ready to become a wise woman, which our society so desperately needs. So a woman's new identity isn't yet available, isn't yet, she's not conscious of it. We can't just close one door and say, oh, here's my fertility going. I know because I'm in perimenopause and my hormones and I haven't had a period, but I want to know exactly who I'm going to be. We can't do that. There has to be trust in the process, like the butterfly, the caterpillar doesn't know it's going to become a butterfly. Or if it does, it doesn't know what type of butterfly. And also this all happens in the dark. So, like a baby gestating in the womb, or a fetus, is growing in the dark. We don't know the sex of the baby. We don't know what the baby's going to be like. Like the seeds of the flower, they're in the earth. We don't know what it's going to become. It's in the unconscious until it rises at the right moment. And we can't force that moment. So none of the examples I've given you know in advance who or what they're going to become. And as in puberty, we're meant naturally to leave behind the person we were. We take some part of our inner child with us inside, but in terms of who we're becoming, we are leaving behind our life in this world as a fertile woman, as able to mother or whatever it is. And we're being pulled by the psyche, by these natural organic forces towards growth and transformation. So by incorporating and honoring these unconscious parts of ourselves that we've buried for so long beneath the surface, we shift into more authenticity. We become more whole. It's a maturation process. That's what perimenopause is. I would say it's an accelerated maturation process. It's a gift. And that's why, women are gifted at this process to become wise women. Society needs us, but not fighting it or just looking at the physical aspects. Society needs us to have gone through the initiation and really grown into our wisdom. And lastly, perimenopause in today's world is not the same as it was 100 years ago. It's demanding very, very different things of women than it did even in my own mother's generation. And I think the question here is that as women, we need to really look honestly deep within to be able to find what it is in each one of us personally and then collectively, what is being asked to come through from these deeper parts of the self. There is a collective unconscious, so I'll do another video on that, but in the personal unconscious, it's all the stuff to do with our own lives, and in the collective unconscious, there's a collective aspect. So my work as a menopause midwife is therefore to help and support the perimenopausal woman as she does this. And as she transforms herself, it's a sort of perimenopause is the gestational period ready for rebirth. And it's okay to need support in this process. It's a huge process. On average, it lasts between 2 and 10 years. It's massive. So I just wanted to mention the myth of Inanna. So although it isn't explicitly a menopausal story, it's a great metaphor for the journey into the unconscious during perimenopause, before we ascend again when the time is right, which we cannot force. So Inanna she was very, you know, well adorned in the upper world. She had a lot of gold, lots of beautiful attires, a beautiful golden cloak. But her intuition, something was telling her, I need to go into the underworld where my sister Ereshkigal is. I think her sister's husband had just died. They were going to have a funeral, but she had this intuitive need. She had to go into the underground, which is women having this call through these emotions coming up, through this feeling that stuff is coming up. That's the call. It's the intuitive call. There is unconscious material I have to work with, which means I have to go into the underworld. I have to go into the unseen. So she decided to go. But Ereshkigal, her underworld sister, wasn't that happy about it. And she said, well, Inanna, like anybody else, I'm not making any differences for her. She's going to have to leave a part of her beautiful attire at every one of the gates it takes to get down to the underworld. And I think it's 9 gates it took her. So at every gate she took off her crown, her jewels, her cloak, whatever it is she had, until, well, first of all, that's very symbolic of, you know, a woman as she goes through the 2 to 10 years, depending on the woman, of perimenopause. If she really does the work, then at each part of her journey, she's leaving behind part of what she no longer needs, part of what is outdated, part of what might have had great value to her, might have been her job, might be some kind of thought process or whatever it is, she has to leave it behind. So bit by bit, she leaves more and more of herself behind because the journey of menopause is getting to our essence. So by the time Inanna arrives at the deepest part of her journey, or the deepest part of the unconscious, she is totally naked. There is none of her previous self left. And her sister, Reshkigal, who is in reality part of herself, part of her own shadow that stays in the underground, that's remained and lives in the unconscious, kills her. And we could see this as the fertile, youthful part of ourself dying. Our unconscious kills it in a way because that's the natural process. And then Ereshkigal hangs up this piece of rotting flesh that's her sister for 3 days on a hook. But a deal is struck, and the gods sort something out, and she's allowed to go back into her outer world, but she has to send someone down who is going to replace her in the underworld. And I think her faithful, not servant, but her faithful hand or help, says, well, your husband didn't mourn you and he didn't care that you were stuck in the underworld. So she says, well, my husband will be the one that goes back and takes my place in the underworld. And I think even that is a very good analogy with the work that women do with the unconscious during perimenopause, because in the outer world, when women are very concerned about their looks and fitting into patriarchal society, and they have done for generations, when they do this work with the unconscious, this deep inner work, they identify and let go of their inner masculine that force them into a certain external masculine view of what it is to be feminine. That's huge. And I will talk a lot about that in other videos. So in a way, she doesn't need this outdated inner masculine and what he expects of her anymore. So he is relegated to the underworld. Okay, so if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to my channel, and there'll be many more to come. Lots of love.